is Adam Smith, and inside this game overview video, I'm excited to be diving into the newly released cinematic mode for the Isofarian Guard from Sky Kingdom Games. Now before we dig into that, I do want to mention the fact the Isofarian Guard is coming back to GameFound in the very near future. You'll find the exact date for that campaign in the pinned comment and video description, along with the actual link to the campaign page. So you can go there right now. People are already talking in the comments. There's already been some updates. That campaign is known as the Isofarian Guard Veilward. The expansion is going to add additional content and gameplay into the core game experience. You'll need the core game to enjoy it. It's going to add things like new characters, new lands to discover, and also new mechanics and different things to add into the gameplay to spice things up, which I think will be of high interest to people that really enjoyed the core experience of the Isofarian Guard. Now here on the game table, I have the cinematic mode PDF printed from update number 1 of the Veilward campaign. It's worth mentioning again, if you already have a copy of the core game, you can implement this cinematic mode right now. You don't have to wait until the end of the campaign or delivery or anything like that. If you've already got the core game, you've got exactly what you need to implement what you can see here. But the other thing worth noting is the fact you don't have to use cinematic mode if you don't want to. If you enjoy the way the game is being played currently as it is, then continue to enjoy it just like that. But if you want an experience that's going to be more cinematic, then this is the mode for you. So what is the cinematic mode? What is it all about? It states it right at the very top of the PDF. It says the mode offers a streamlined experience for players who wish to focus on story progression while maintaining the core mechanics and the heart of the game. Cinematic mode reduces the grind, which is huge. I've heard that the grind in this game, for some people, it doesn't work. In other words, the time necessary to accomplish certain goals. The cinematic mode takes that away, which is a huge win. It simplifies resource management. It cuts down on overall playtime without removing key gameplay elements, and the mode's ideal for players looking to immerse themselves in a narrative while still engaging with the game's systems. Now, the cinematic mode is optional, as I mentioned, and can be enabled or disabled at any time during the exploration phase. So that's really cool. It's kind of like a plug-and-play thing you can use as you wish. And I can tell you, as a dad and an individual that has a YouTube channel to run, the one thing that's kind of fun about this is the fact that I can actually table this game more often now with this mode, because I don't have to worry about the grinding aspect of the game. Which again, if you are playing the game, it's on your table, you have lots of time, and you love going through it like that, then you're golden. You don't need this cinematic mode. But if you're somebody who has tight time frames to play games in, and you're looking to cram as much gameplay in as possible, the cinematic mode might be exactly what you're looking for. And I almost look at it like a love letter from the designer of the game to the backers of the original crowdfunding campaigns. So without further ado, join me as I walk through each of the 7 major points of the cinematic mode that you can optionally add into your experience and leverage them right now. The first thing I want to focus on is inventory management being streamlined. This is a really big one. So to show an example of this, in this hypothetical situation, we have Catherine here and Yuri, and these are the loadouts for both characters, and we're looking at upgrading Catherine's armor. And on the world map, we know that Silney is nearby, and we could potentially head there to the blacksmith. This is the index book, page 31, and you'll see for Silney, we could craft the hunter's tunic. There's certain materials that we need in order to make that happen, and currently Catherine has some of them, but not all of them. Actually, some of them we left behind at the stash at our fort. As I mentioned in the index, we need to have a reinforced tunic, which Catherine already has, which is great. And we also need to have a carapace, which she has as well, at a quantity of 2. Here's a look at the world map. Lots to explore inside the core game, even beyond to the south and up further north outside of this shot. But the 2 places of focus for this example are going to be the fort and Silney. Now, Silney, let's say hypothetically our party is about a node or 2 outside of the city. We want to be able to craft that upgrade of armor for Catherine. We have 2 of the 4 materials that we need to craft it, but the other 2 were left at the stash in the fort way over here. When not playing in cinematic mode, you would have had to be inside the fort at one of the nodes on the actual fort dashboard in order to access the stash, and that would cause you to have to travel all the way back there just to go all the way back out again. Of course, you could technically go to a different city at that point, but still, that's a lot of travel to get back there and get those resources. Instead, in the cinematic mode, as long as you're inside of a city and you're at a blacksmith, you're able to access your stash. So thematically, you can think of it as a courier, essentially moving goods between the cities for you so you don't have to make all that travel yourself, speeding up your ability to craft items and manage your inventory. So let's say our party heads into Silney, we head to the blacksmith, we have the reinforced tunic on Catherine, and we also have the carapace, so we have those two materials covered, and we can freely take from our stash the bear pelt at a quantity of 2 and the animal hide at a quantity of 2 that we had sitting back at our fort, and we're able to now go ahead and craft the hunter's tunic. So streamlined inventory management will certainly come in handy and speed up gameplay for you. Now let's move on to the second major change inside of cinematic mode. It has to do with battles. So when your party happens to move into a yellow node and you're drawing from the event bag, when you see a skull chip come out, you are able to skip the battle if all the enemies tied to that chip have been previously defeated. So in this example, the single skull chip at node 30 is going to bring in a marauder. Within the cinematic PDF that was released, again, that's in Update 1, you can find that document there and print it off. This is where you keep track of the enemies you defeat as you go through the campaign, and you'll mark them off with X's for each of the levels of each of the enemies. And again, if you happen to run into them again in the future, you can choose at that point to skip the battle. If you do, there's just a few things you have to do if it's skipped. The first thing is that each guard is going to lose 1 HP per chapter, so each guard would lose 2 HP if you're in chapter number 2. Each guard is going to add 1 break chip and 1 weaken chip to their chip bag, and then it states for each enemy with a Tenebrious in its name, a player draws a chip from the event bag. If it's a single skull chip drawn, then each guard is going to add a freeze chip to their bag. If it's a double skull chip, it's a poison chip going in the bag, and a triple skull chip is going to add 1 corruption chip. Then finally it says the battle is considered a victory. You gain all the enemy drops and Lux Essence, which is the whole point of this. It's speeding everything up, getting you right to the actual end of the battle. And there's just some constraints here to worry about in terms of the action being performed in certain situations. Of course, you can only do this inside the exploration phase. You cannot do it during a narrative event. And there's additional text there to let you know of a couple other things to keep in mind. So you can quickly see that traveling along the roads becomes a lot faster if you're able to skip the battles as you've dealt with those enemies in the past. Being able to go from yellow node to yellow node quicker is certainly going to speed up your travel in the game, and you won't get bogged down by the number of battles. The third change inside of the cinematic mode has to do with increased challenge. If you wish, you can have all enemies from chapter 2 onwards have +1 attack and +1 action point. This not only means they're going to be hitting harder when they attack you, but they're also going to have more action points to spend, allowing them to potentially do more on their turn. Let's now move on to change number 4, simplifying the gear progression. Within the cinematic mode PDF, you'll find specific scenes during the campaign where each guard is going to gain equipment cards with a star rarity which is equal to the chapter they're currently entering. So for example, if we were entering into chapter number 311, Catherine and Yuri would be looking down here, and you can see Catherine would be taking a Sky Splitter and Guard's armor. Yuri would be taking Reckoning Tides and Guard's armor. So in the end, each of the guards will have a brand new weapon and a brand new armor. And the idea behind this is that it's streamlining equipment progression. It's eliminating some of the grind of having to get materials and resources in order to craft towards certain pieces of equipment. You'll still be able to do all the crafting you'd normally expect inside the game, though. It doesn't take any of the regular crafting away. It's just going to provide you some equipment that's already pre-built and given to you at specific time frames during the story. That's going to allow you to focus more on the narrative. That's going to do it for change number 4, which also touched on change 5. And change 5 is all around crafting remaining available. As I mentioned when we were talking before just moments ago, these upgrades are not going to take away from the crafting inside the game. That is a very cool part of the game. You'll still be doing lots of crafting, but you no longer have to rely on it solely for upgrades to stay on par at the current level. So to summarize the 5th change, which is crafting remaining available, nothing changes in terms of crafting and being able to go after specific materials to craft things that you want, but tied to number 4, where you're going to actually gain some equipment along the way, you now can focus on gathering materials that might actually aid your characters in different ways outside the armor and weapons if you wish. So for instance, you could go after a wolf tooth ring if you wanted to, or maybe a nomad's trap. And as with all crafting in the game, you'll be keeping an eye on the materials that you need, and that'll be your focus in order to craft that specific item. The 6th change of cinematic mode is that Lux Essence can now be spent at any time in the game. You'll gain Lux from winning battles and completing objectives, and you can hold up to 99 Lux Essence on the dial at any one time. Lux is very important because you use it to unlock nodes which are on the guard's skill trees and a variety of ways at the fort. Now this change is a big one because Lux Essence is tied specifically to 3 key systems in the game: skill progression via the guard skill trees, fort building and upgrades, structures like the lumber mill, barracks, boat dock, a number of these you can see actually pre-built here in this example of the forge, and the crafting of top tier gear, which happens at the blacksmith or forge. So with Lux Essence now being able to be spent anytime, it ensures that the dial's not going to overflow. It also provides more flexibility for you, as you can now go ahead and upgrade things at the fort. You can also progress on the skill tree, and you can go ahead and craft high tier gear at the blacksmith and forge. And the final change within cinematic mode is that Stonebound ability cards equipped can only be to a maximum of 2 rather than 3 outside of cinematic mode. The keyword there is equipped, so Catherine here has 2 Stonebound ability cards equipped currently on her dashboard. And as you can see with Yuri, exact same situation, maximum of 2 equipped. And now, my friends, going to wrap up my game overview video for the Isofarian Guard from Sky Kingdom Games. This is the cinematic mode. It's already been released in a PDF, as I mentioned, sitting in update number 1 on the Veilward campaign. You'll find the link to the campaign in the pinned comment and video description. And it's worth mentioning this cinematic mode at a high level reduces the grind, it simplifies the resource management, it cuts down on the overall play time of the game without removing key elements of gameplay, which is awesome. It's also optional. You can enable or disable it anytime during the exploration phase. That is huge, so you can turn it on and off at will. As someone that's been following along with this game over the years and seeing it evolve and change and get better and better, it's absolutely awesome. And it's really cool to see that the designer has gone back and tried to create another way of enjoying the exact same experience. This is going to cater to people that already enjoy the game, people that might have actually walked away from it due to potentially the time and the grind involved. You can now come back and enjoy the experience at this point without all of that, but you have the option to go on either path, and as I mentioned, you can enable it or disable it as you wish through the exploration phase, and that to me is massive. And I wish a lot of other campaign games out there that are massive in scale provided these types of options to their players, because these tweaks, especially when they just come as part of a PDF, can be absolutely huge in terms of your enjoyment of the game. The final thing I'll mention is the love for the Isofarian Guard from the solo community, which is very apparent every single time I do one of the annual awards. The voting for this one rises to the top quite quickly. I'll show you a couple awards on screen here that it's won in the past, and this game just continues to get better as the years go on and more content getting added into it. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the changes in cinematic mode, and also stay tuned for that future campaign coming up real soon. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.